There are two ways to install the Worker Command Line Interface, or CLI, on macOS. The first method requires that you have the Homebrew Package Manager installed. Run the brew tap worker/worker command to add worker to your list of taps. After you have the worker tap, you can install the CLI using brew install wercker.yml. If you don't have Homebrew, or you'd rather install the Worker CLI manually, you can use curl to download and install the CLI. This command downloads the CLI program directly to your user local bin directory, so you may need to run the curl command as root. You can use the worker version command to verify that the CLI is installed. Before you can use the CLI, there's some setup that needs to be done. First, you need to create a virtual machine inside Docker using the docker machine create command. The creation of the VM only needs to be done once. This eval command must be run each time you start a new shell to set the environment variables to use the VM. To avoid having to enter this command for each new shell, you can add it to your .profile file. Now let's look at the worker CLI and how you may use it. The worker help command not only shows you the available commands, but it also provides documentation for individual commands. For example, the check config command. Let's use worker help check config to see what options are available. Here's a simple wercker.yml file to use as an example. It has a dev pipeline and a build pipeline. We'll run worker check config to make sure our YAML file is okay. It is, so let's run our project's dev step. First, we'll call worker help dev to look at the help for the dev command, and now we'll run the worker dev command. But wait, this pipeline needs an environment variable called secret_code. There are three ways to provide environment variables to the worker CLI. The first is to define an environment variable in the shell. Since the environment variable is secret_code, we'll define a variable called x_secret_code. Note that when you define an environment variable for use in the CLI, you have to add x_ to the beginning of the variable name. This variable will persist as long as the shell does. Now let's see what happens when we rerun our dev pipeline. We can see the expected secret code in the output. You can also define an environment variable right on the command line that only applies to one command. That would look like this. This time we see the new secret code that we defined. Finally, you can define environment variables in a text file and use the worker CLI's environment option to use those variables. Here's what that file looks like. And here's how we use it with the CLI. We see the secret code that came from the file. Next, let's use the worker CLI to run our build pipeline. We'll run worker help build to check the help text first. For this build, there are some Docker variables that need to be defined. In this case, the environment file would look similar to this, but I've removed my actual credentials. Now we'll run the build with the actual environment file. And the build's done. Learn more at cloud.oracle.com/containers/pipelines.